How did you get in front of that first group of people to give you $1,500, Reverend, back in the day? How do you go about this crazy thing of finding people to give us money?
I went to churches, I went to local newspapers, I went to previous employers where I had summer jobs, and just people that I knew back in my hometown of Rockville, Maryland. And most of the people said, Jonathan, my gosh, you're really excited about this. And I do think that when it comes to fundraising, there has to be that kind of excitement, passion that a person shows. And it worked for me for that first $1,500.
I think if there's any kind of advice I'd give individuals who want to get into the fundraising world and for whatever reason, is just to take that first leap, whether it's an email, a phone call, or going out to an event to speak.
What I have found over the years is that our support has not been limited to members of the AME Church, largely because I've always been thinking ecumenically. So I've got friends within the Baptist faith, Church of God in Christ, who have been supportive of the work, not because I'm AME, but it's because they know me, we've connected at other meetings and settings. That's number one. The other thing that I have found is that there are service groups such as the Lions Club, Rotary Club, that are worldwide. And interestingly enough, we have pastors and leaders in Rwanda and Congo that are a part of the Rotary Club. And so I've been able to therefore connect with officials of Rotary clubs here in the United States that has helped to generate support for what we're doing.
These relationships are incredibly important, where you can identify one, really build on them, build that trust. You know, as Reverend Weaver said, taking the ambassador to the school, letting them really experience firsthand what it is that you're doing, ended up with a nomination or a referral much later. It's the same for us, really. You build that trust, you keep them close, and then start to think how else you can engage them in your programs, where it's not just a fundraising ask as well. So it was really just your top 3 messages. Try not to deviate from that. You don't need to go into this whole explanation of the history of the organization and kind of where you come from and how it got to where it is. This is what we're doing. This is why it's important. This is how you can help. Certainly coming from Save the Children, I've really learned about how it is that we tell the story of children who benefit from our programs in a way that gets the story across, still maintains the urgency of the situation. You know, you're offering fundraising for very critical humanitarian responses, and you can tell that story, you can get the message across while maintaining the dignity of the participants, of the beneficiaries. It really is important, and I ask us to always have that self-reflection as we are working with these communities, because there is a power dynamic. And it is how we relate in that power dynamic to protect them that is really important. So I'm glad you asked the question, and I just really want to enforce that we constantly self-check. To think about who it is that could potentially help you to implement more programs, or who you could implement programs for. So don't just map out your partner's thinking financially, map out your partner's thinking strategy as well. Who can help you to develop and deliver these strategies?
Yeah, no, this reminds me of an old saying: it's not fundraising, it's friend raising, right? It's making new relationships and starting new friendships with people.
So I think one of the things I spoke about before was really mapping who your target audience would be in terms of funding, but then also in terms of strategic partners. One thing that what's really helped me is since 2020, since humanitarian response really became a reality for my work as well, was always when I'm looking at who these funders are, but who these potential strategic partners are, is who would be a good person to talk to about our humanitarian response, and just keeping that in mind always. And then also I think just maybe as a caution is even in humanitarian response is maintaining how we are talking about our beneficiaries and how we are talking about the experiences of people on the ground, and maintaining that legitimacy, but also really making sure that their dignity is still intact even in times of crisis.